A teenage girl finds a mysterious pin among her belongings after getting arrested. When she touches it, she's suddenly transported to a gleaming futuristic city that shouldn't exist. But there's a countdown timer on the pin, and when it reaches 0, everything disappears. But this mysterious pin didn't just appear out of nowhere. To understand its origin and what it really means, we need to go back to 1964, where this incredible story truly begins. In New York, a child genius named Frank Walker attends the World's Fair with a jetpack he invented. He wants to enter the inventors competition and shows his creation to Judge David Nix. Nix is impressed at first, but when Frank admits the jetpack doesn't actually work properly yet, Nix refuses to let him enter the contest. Frank leaves feeling heartbroken. He sits outside thinking about how his own father always told him he was wasting his time with inventions. Then a girl named Athena approaches him. She gives Frank an orange lapel pin with a blue T symbol and tells him to follow her and Nix without being noticed. Frank follows them. Nix's group goes on a popular attraction with a long line, so Frank sneaks through the side and jumps into an empty boat. In the middle of the ride, a laser detects Frank's pin and opens a trap door. The boat goes down a dark corridor where a futuristic wagon appears. Frank enters the wagon, but metal blinds immediately block all doors and windows. The wagon shakes violently and Frank falls to the floor. When the wagon stops and doors open, Frank steps onto a platform surrounded by heavy fog. A flying car passes by with Athena and Nix inside. Frank tries going after them, but giant robots appear and try stopping him. Frank runs around dodging robotic arms and accidentally falls to the platform below, breaking his jetpack. A friendly robot appears, grabs the jetpack, fixes it, and gives it back to Frank. Guards show up to capture Frank, so he steps away and falls again. This time he puts on the repaired jetpack, activates it, and finally gets to fly. Frank flies through the fog and discovers he's in Tomorrowland, a futuristic city filled with only the brightest minds. When Frank sees Athena, he lands next to her and shows Nix that the jetpack is fixed. Nix ignores him, but Athena takes Frank's hand to show him what his life will be like from now on. Years pass and we reach 2015. This is where Casey's story connects, but not quite yet. First, teenage girl Casey sneaks into a NASA launch site in Florida to sabotage machinery for the demolition. Her father Eddie works as a NASA engineer, and Casey doesn't want him losing his job. Athena watches from the shadows. After Casey returns home, Athena uses a small scanner to get Casey's DNA from her bike helmet and codes it into her last Tomorrowland pin. Next morning, Eddie gets a call from work about the situation. Casey thinks she saved his job, but Eddie says they'll bring replacement cranes, so she really needs to stop. Casey reminds him that keeping up hope is more important. That evening, Casey tries sabotaging the demolition again, but police are waiting and arrest her. Hours later, someone pays the bail. Casey picks up her belongings to return home and finds the pin among her things. This brings us to our opening moment. After touching the pin and experiencing that impossible vision multiple times, Casey tries walking toward the city she sees. But walking makes her bump against things in the jail room and the pin falls. To avoid trouble, she picks up the pin using gum wrapper. Eddie shows up to take her home. On the way, he scolds Casey for her actions. She makes him touch the pin, but nothing happens when Eddie touches it. Only Casey can activate it. Eddie gets tired of her talking about the pin and takes it away. At home, Casey waits for Eddie to sleep, then steals the pin from his night table. Touching it makes her appear in the other world. Walking toward the city makes her bump against walls and fall downstairs. The noise wakes Eddie, so Casey hides and decides to do this somewhere else. Casey goes to a huge field and touches the pin, finally appearing in Tomorrowland. She takes a train going further into the city and discovers the pin has a timer going down. Also, nobody can see her. Casey leaves the train at the next stop and sees important scientists entering a different wagon. She tries following them, but water appears around her because the pin timer is reaching 0. Casey tries pushing through the water, but Tomorrowland disappears and she finds herself in a swamp. Casey returns home, wakes her brother Nate, and asks for their dad's computer password. They search for the pin online and find an ad from a store that buys these pins. Casey writes down the shop address and asks Nate to tell their father she's going camping with friends. Thinking about how this pin can transport you to another dimension is absolutely wild. Speaking of different places, what country are you watching this from? I'd love to know where my viewers are located around the world. Next morning, Athena shows up at the house. Nate gives her the camping excuse, but Athena can tell he's lying and pressures him until he confesses. Meanwhile, Casey reaches the shop from the ad. The eccentric clerks are clearly interested and confirm what Casey saw was real. Tomorrowland is a place where the brightest minds gather to create freely without chains of government and greed. The only way to access the city is through the pin. The clerks want to buy the pin and know where Casey got it. When Casey refuses to cooperate, they press a button to lock the door and reveal futuristic weapons that shoot plasma. Casey tries hiding among merchandise, but the clerks find her and demand information about some girl. Suddenly, a grenade breaks through the window and freezes the clerks inside a force field. Armed Athena enters the shop and explains it's a time bomb that won't last long. She helps Casey get her hand out of the field, but this causes the bomb to shut off. The clerks are free and counterattack. Athena fights them hand to hand with Casey throwing merchandise at them. When Athena removes one clerk's head, Casey is shocked to discover both clerks were animatronics. After announcing the animatronics are about to self-destruct, Athena drags Casey out just in time to avoid the explosion. Athena breaks a car window to open it, pushes Casey inside, and uses a special tool to make the car start. She explains they need to escape before they find them. On the road, Casey begins asking questions. Athena tells her she gave her the pin. Before saying more, Athena suddenly begins malfunctioning. Casey watches in horror how Athena fixes herself because she's an animatronic as well. Scared, Casey jumps out of the car. Athena tries to follow but a truck hits her. The driver comes to check on her, and Casey steals the truck to escape. However, Athena is fine and immediately runs after the truck, jumping through the window to steal the keys and lock the door. Casey begins yelling. Athena finally shuts her up by confirming Casey has her last pin and they need to quickly go to Tomorrowland because they built something they shouldn't have. Meanwhile, cops arrive at the exploded store and discover a burned robot head. Before investigating more, a man named Dave shows up, introducing himself as Secret Service. After seeing the robot head, Dave also pulls out a futuristic weapon and eliminates all the cops before turning to his companions, announcing they found the girl and should tell Nix. The girls are making their way to New York to find the only person who can get them back into Tomorrowland. Casey begins asking questions about other people who got pins, but Athena can't answer and shuts down. Next morning, Athena wakes up and takes over driving so Casey can rest. Athena tells Casey the person they're visiting is called Frank. Once Casey falls asleep, Athena keeps herself entertained by remembering all the good times she used to have with her friend. Hours later, Casey wakes up when she's suddenly pushed off the truck in front of a house in the countryside. Seeing Athena driving away, Casey has no choice but to approach the house, only to be chased by a guard dog. Casey trips and falls on the mud, which makes her realize the dog isn't leaving prints because it's a hologram. Ignoring the fake beast, Casey knocks on the door and shows her pin to the camera, asking to be taken to Tomorrowland. A sudden burst of air pushes Casey back and an older Frank comes out of the house, demanding to know where Athena is. Hearing she's gone angers Frank and he tells Casey to leave because Tomorrowland is nothing but a manipulative lie. Then Frank returns to his house and locks the door. Casey refuses to leave and waits outside even while it rains. Eventually, she gets tired and looks around to make a plan. By starting a fire on the plowing truck, Casey gets Frank to leave the house. While he's busy putting the flames out, Casey runs inside and locks the door. When Frank tries to enter again, Casey just pushes him back with the same burst of air. Casey begins looking around the house, finding all sorts of crazy inventions. One particular machine plays a record of little Frank trying to make Athena laugh, and Athena telling him to stop trying. In another room, she finds a bunch of screens keeping up with the news and a timer slowly going down. Suddenly, a secret door under the stairs opens and Frank gets back into the house, ready to kick Casey out, but she convinces him to give her some answers. Frank was kicked out of Tomorrowland for building something he shouldn't have, the timer connected to the screens. He wonders if Casey would want to know the date of her end and she says yes, but accepting it may actually cause it, so she wouldn't believe it because they need to make their own destiny. This statement causes the percentage on the screen to fall, which greatly impresses Frank. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted by arrival of Dave and his agents, who are actually robots looking for Casey. Frank immediately activates all metal blinds. When one robot uses her strength to get inside anyway, Frank uses a tool to electrocute her. Another robot is destroyed by an electrical trap on the wall, and Frank gets rid of two more by making them fall through a secret trapdoor. Then Frank and Casey run to the living room where one more robot is waiting. Frank fights it hand to hand, and Casey helps him win by grabbing a special portal machine and sticking the robot inside. The duo makes their way upstairs where more robots fall into different traps around the house, until Dave catches up and holds Frank at gunpoint. Luckily Casey finds a bat and uses it to beat Dave. Frank then drags Casey into the bathroom and they jump into the tub, which Frank activates to transform into a capsule. One more robot comes after them and tries to grab the tub, but Frank launches it, causing the capsule to fly out and land on the lake. Frank and Casey swim out and enter the woods where Frank has hidden a bike that won't start. The duo is suddenly startled by a light approaching them, but it's just Athena that came to pick them up. The trio leaves in the truck and as soon as they hit the road, Frank and Athena begin arguing. It's revealed that all pins were supposed to be destroyed, and Athena escaped with the last box of 12 to keep recruiting people. Frank is furious that more young people have been dragged into this and tells Casey that Athena lied. She doesn't shut down if you ask too many questions, it's just her ignoring you. Frank thinks Athena puts up fake emotions to lure you in and abandon you later. Athena is hurt but ignores it for now to take them to the local station where Frank has installed his secret network that transmits to his house. There's another capsule waiting, and once the humans are wearing proper protection, they activate the system that teleports them away. Once they arrive, Casey discovers they're at the top of the Eiffel Tower. There's a guard near the door, but luckily Frank brought a bunch of inventions in his bag, including a little tool that allows Casey to knock the guard out with just a light tap. They enter a room with an exhibition with famous inventors. Frank explains that Eiffel, Verne, Tesla, and Edison were the ones that started Tomorrowland by using the Eiffel Tower as an antenna that took them to the other world. There have always been rumors of a secret entrance, and after searching around, Frank activates it. This causes the Eiffel Tower to split into two and reveal a rocket, so the trio hurries inside as more robots arrive to capture them. The energy that the rocket expels when taking off pushes the robots away. After flying up for a while, the rocket goes back again, opening a portal as it falls at great speed. Can you imagine what it would feel like to be in that rocket falling at such incredible speed? The technology in Tomorrowland is just mind-blowing. By the way, what time is it where you're watching this? Let me know in the comments. Moments later, the group arrives in Tomorrowland. The authorities saw them fall and are coming after them, so Frank makes Athena hide a special bomb he brought inside her body. The first one to meet them is Nix, the city governor, who wants to arrest them. Frank and Athena quickly change his mind by informing him Casey was capable of lowering the percentage on the screens. Shocked, Nix takes the trio to headquarters where they keep Frank's dangerous invention, called a tachyon machine. When they take the elevator, Casey sees holograms which happen to be flashes of the future, caused by the machine that utilizes a particle that moves significantly faster than light. The group enters the center of the machine and Frank teaches Casey how to use it, allowing her to look at any point in humanity's history. Casey is shocked to see herself in her house a few mornings ago. Frank explains the machine can also look forward, so Casey begins going through history at high speed until she finally sees the issue. The machine has predicted that in 58 days, the world will end. Casey doesn't understand why they aren't warning people on Earth. Nix explains he doesn't care because that's the world that will end, not Tomorrowland. And he won't allow anyone to move in because they'll do to Tomorrowland the same thing they did to Earth. Casey refuses to accept this, and her attitude causes the screen to flicker for a second, showing a better world. Frank tries to point out this proves there's a chance, but Nix just knocks them all out. Moments later, Frank wakes up and finds Athena telling them they'll be deported again. Casey is depressed because this whole adventure has been for nothing. When Frank tries to comfort her, she snaps, accusing them of lying to her. As she begins to rant, she suddenly has a moment of realization. Frank has been pirating the machine's signal to watch it at his house, and the signal is floating around Earth, zapping these ideas of doom into people's minds. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but if Casey could change it with her optimism, it means turning it off would allow people to see the light again. The guards come to pick the trio up so they can be kicked out of Tomorrowland through a portal. Casey tries to tell Nix about her discovery and asks him to turn off the machine, but Nix says there's no off button. His calm attitude makes Frank realize the truth. Nix is putting the idea in people's heads on purpose. Nix explains that in the past, trying to tell the government about the incoming doom was ignored. Thus he sent the idea directly to people's heads as a warning to make them change their ways. However, instead of working for a better future, humanity accepted the end of the world as inevitable. In Nix's opinion, it isn't the machine's fault. Humanity has brought this to itself. Frank pretends to accept this and shakes hands with Nix, but only to touch his bracelet and start the machine platform again. Athena and Casey knock out the guards while Frank fights Nix, who activates two robots to go after the girls. Frank asks Athena to use the bomb he gave her, but when Athena tries to, the robots catch her. Athena passes the bomb to Casey while she fights the robots, and Casey runs to the platform, which starts moving wildly because Frank and Nix keep fighting over the bracelet on the other side of the portal. Athena gains control of one robot and uses it to push the other one through the portal, causing it to attack Nix too. Casey manages to activate the bomb by watching a flash of the future, but when she's about to throw it, Nix regains control of the bracelet and drags the platform down. Athena rushes to catch the platform with her robot, then runs to the control panel to close the portal, destroying the second robot and leaving Frank and Nix outside. At that moment, Casey finds the bomb, which is about to explode. Athena has no choice but to open the portal again, and once the men run back inside, they throw the bomb into the portal so it can explode away from them. The portal breaks and falls on top of Nix, capturing him. However, there's a weapon nearby that he reaches in order to eliminate Frank. Athena sees Frank's end coming and realizes it's a flash from the future, so she runs to put herself between Frank and the shot. Casey takes the weapon from Nix and Frank tries to take Athena to a repair shop, but Athena asks him to stop because there isn't enough time. Before she goes, she needs Frank to know something very important, and she proceeds to play a series of recordings from the time they spent together all those years ago. Little Frank used to have a crush on Athena, but he was hurt when he realized she was a machine. This always bothered Athena, and she kept voice diaries that described how Frank made her feel things that robots shouldn't. Frank is glad to hear Athena did like him too and that she never stopped believing in him. So now it's time for Athena to go. Her body is about to self-destruct and she wants them to use that explosion to stop the machine. Frank uses a jetpack to fly Athena up, and after they say their goodbyes, Athena is dropped inside the machine. The whole structure explodes and the debris falls on Nix, ending him. Tomorrowland loses its power and Frank tries to keep control of the jetpack to at least land safely in the river. Casey rushes to check on him, and as they begin talking about what to do next, A bunch of flashes from the future gives them an idea. First, Frank fixes the portal so Casey can reunite with her family. Then together they begin working on restarting the pin program, for which they build a bunch of robots like Athena. These robots use a portal to travel all over the world and leave pins for the bright minds that may help them make a better future for Earth. The way Frank and Casey are working together to save the world by finding hopeful people is really inspiring. If you had a pin that could take you to Tomorrowland, would you go? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more movie explanations. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.